Tulsi, I wanted to go, I saw your post on this, and actually I kind of like that iPhone is doing this now. When you download new apps and with the Threads app, you don't have to go through, like, obviously they always want you to look at the terms of service, and again, it's usually like the small print legal forms. But iPhone, at least on the Apple app, when you download from the store, they're making it very clear the data that is going to be collected on you. It is shocking when it is taken out of legalese, Tulsi, and put into just basic bullet points, what you are giving to, in this case, to Mark Zuckerberg and Threads and Meta, when you just by downloading Threads, not even by utilizing it yet, but just by downloading it.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. You know, when sometimes when I talk to people about this broader issue of how these big tech and social media companies are collecting so much information, people are like, oh, I got nothing to hide. That's not what it's about. When you actually, like you said, when you look at, in simple terms, the information they're collecting, things like, you know, your contact info, your browsing history, your usage data, your contacts, specific identifiers about you. And then they have this nebulous thing called sensitive info. What is that exactly? And just these questions should raise alarm bells in people's minds. Not only that they're collecting all this information on us. I mean, most of us have our phones with us almost everywhere we go, and there's a lot of information, personal information they could collect there. But it's what are they doing with it? They're monetizing this for their own profits, certainly. But then you take a step back and you look at the increased revealing of collusion that we're seeing between the national security state, federal law enforcement agencies, Department of Justice, and these big tech companies, and how either they are willingly providing information to the government about those that the government's interested in for whatever reason. But then there's also the case of implied pressure, where if you've got the FBI calling and saying, hey, we need this information about this group or this individual, whether the threat is implied or not, if it's explicit or implicit, the big tech companies are in a position where they have to think, well, if we don't provide this information, what consequences will we face? What extra scrutiny will we be under? What power will they then use against us in order to get us to submit? So there's a whole range of consequences here that we should be concerned about with this extensive data capture that's coming from companies like Meta and people like Mark Zuckerberg, who don't have any qualms about doing it.
No, I mean, I just want to read through real quick. This is the data linked to you. The following data may be collected and linked to your identity when you download Threads. And this, again, it's not that uncommon, by the way, that this info is shared, that apps take this info. Yeah, what was different here is Apple is now putting it forward very clearly, so I don't have to read for you, A-1, B, 2, E in small print. So, for instance, health and fitness, your financial info, your contact info, your user content, and on that, it has the picture image, so all of your photos, your browsing history, how much you use the phone, the usage data, your diagnostics, your purchases, what you've bought on your phone. Again, everything you bought on your phone, your location, which again is a normal one that I think people are pretty used to, using maps and things like that. All of your contacts, all of your search history, and they define that differently than browsing history, which is interesting. Any identifiers, like personal identifiers. Then we get to the one that Tulsi said, which is the strangest, and Logan, it is strange. Sensitive info, yeah. And it has an eyeball.
Yeah, exactly. Without giving out real details of what that means. Sure, I think everyone has maybe most people at least have a basic understanding that if you're using one of these free platforms, free social media platforms, they're not giving it to you for free for no reason. They're doing it for data collection and advertising. And it's something we've always had a conversation about, especially when it comes to, okay, is this just being used so they can target an ad to me? Okay, that's sort of the business. We understand we're getting this free service so they can do this. But it's also one of the reasons we said, now TikTok, on the other hand, we said, we're all pushing back against TikTok because of very specific reasons. And that was, what is the data being used for? And now when you see a look at this, it does, and Tulsi, I'll throw this back to you question, it does bring up a lot of concerns. But there's also concern of this is the method of getting your message out right now. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, don't use the app, don't use Threads, don't use Twitter, don't use Instagram or Facebook. Because right now, especially heading into elections over the next year, if we're not part of that conversation, easily there's a huge group of people who are in that conversation. So how do we balance this? Or is this about getting more control over the data that's being spread?
Logan, it's exactly that. It's about getting over, it's empowering people to be able to make their own decisions about what information is being collected. And therefore, every one of us can say, yeah, okay, fine. I'm okay with this because now I want to use this app. This kind of transparency it must be there. And there's some legislation in Congress that people are looking at that I believe there's a Data Privacy Protection Act that both Republicans and Democrats were looking at that really should apply to all of these social media companies, because the reality is that this is our virtual town square. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or any of these others, this is our virtual town square. And for candidates who are running for office, or frankly, individuals who care about an issue, nonprofits, organizations who are trying to help make sure that voters are informed before we make our decisions at the polling place on election day, this is one of the main platforms that we have to be able to reach people, especially at a time where more and more people are not trusting the mainstream news, the propaganda media, because they're seeing that it is propaganda. They're looking for other platforms to be able to find information and make decisions for themselves. And so you're right. It's not a matter of saying, oh, well, just don't use it. Well, everybody move to a flip phone or something and not have access to this. I don't think that's a realistic proposition for most people.
No, and we know the DOJ is fighting back against that court decision. They want to be able to tell social media companies what content they should and shouldn't promote. And we're not talking about going to them and saying, hey, there's a terrorist group using this hashtag or using these accounts to recruit, or there's someone here that they're involved with, selling drugs. This is the hashtag, or this is the image that they're using, the code words that they're using. That would be legitimate because that's not protected speech. That's illegal. But if you add all of this information that they're collecting and then add to the fact that the government wants to start targeting specific content, which they already were doing, they're banned right now from doing it because of that court order. I mean, that is a lot of content that even the U.S. government doesn't have, that these tech companies have. And they're putting that pressure saying, hey, if you want to keep your Section 230 status and your immunity, you better share this with us. So I think this is one of the biggest issues facing probably our generation and the next generations of people, which is how much the tech companies not just run our lives, because they're so important to our lives to have all these phones and apps, but how much they know about every single one of us, down to the dimes, how much you've got in your bank account. Now, there's another issue I did want to get to quickly, Tulsi. I know it's near and dear to your heart. I think, again, clean oceans, clean water is near and dear to everyone's heart. It's not a liberal or conservative issue. It's an issue about us, humanity, and taking care of the earth. And Japan, this is pretty shocking, is soon going to be releasing, they call it treated radioactive water, into the ocean, following approval from the UN nuclear watchdog. And it's a controversial plan that comes 12 years. This is water that was, infected with radioactive water from the Fukushima nuclear meltdown.
This is a really important issue. There's two things that I want people to draw their attention to. Number one is the UN's IAEA regulatory body has just given their okay for Japan to release this radioactive water out into the ocean. They're trying to tell people, hey, everything's going to be fine, but they're using words like probably fine, possibly, likely no concern, likely no impact. But scientists from around the world, the United States and other countries, are saying, hold on a second, not so fast. You have not provided the data and the evidence to show that by releasing this water, it's not going to negatively impact and contaminate fish with this radioactive matters, which then could impact people negatively who then eat that fish. The ramifications are huge. They cannot do this. This is a bigger question about the danger of these nuclear power plants and how they continue to negatively impact us around the world.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way to do away with this radioactive water than just, or matter, than just releasing it into a place where we get food from. And again, that's so important to all of us. Tulsi, we appreciate you being a member of our team, a senior analyst on political and foreign affairs